Hi everyone, and welcome to Let's Get Literary, a Wood TV Plus show where we talk about all things books. I'm your host, Madeline Bursma, and today I've got a special Christmas episode for you. Now, if you're still working on some of your Christmas shopping and are kind of stuck on a gift to get the reader in your life, don't worry, I've got you covered. Right now on our website, woodtv.com, we've got a Christmas gift guide with suggestions from local bookstores. Later on, I'll be talking to one of the bookstores that offered their recommendations for the guide. I'll also be speaking with two Michigan authors with new children's Christmas books out. But first, one of the books on that gift guide is The Gales of November, the Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Last month, I got a chance to interview that author. Here's my conversation with John Bacon. And I'm so excited to welcome New York Times bestselling author John Bacon, whose new book, The Gales of November, tells the untold story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the 29 men who died when she sank, and the families that they left behind. John, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Madeline, thank you.
And so, first of all, why tell the story? What inspired you to really take this deep dive look into the Edmund Fitzgerald?
Good question. I've got a ton of books in my bookshelf back home on, must be 10 or 15 at least out there, trying to figure out what happened to the ship. And of course, that does interest me, and we have chapters on that as well. I think we advanced the conversation. But what drove me was not that, but the 29 men on the ship. Who were they? What are their jobs like? What are their lives like? What's it like on the ship? What's it like on shore? What are their families like, and where are their families? So it's trying to humanize the story that really drove me.
And so as you read through the book, it's clear that you did your homework. I mean, more than 100 interviews, tons of research. But as you were preparing for the book, was there any details or stories that really stuck out to you the most?
Oh, Lord help me. Yes, quite a few, of course. One, for example, Eddie Binden, 47 years old, was about to retire, and 5 other guys on the ship were about to retire after this trip, including Captain Ernest McSorley. Eddie Binden, the day before they left, on November 8th, a Saturday, went across from Superior, Wisconsin, where they're about to take off from, to Duluth, Minnesota, to buy his wife a 2-carat diamond ring, 25th anniversary, and for reasons, Madeline, only he would know. He did not tuck it away in his duffel bag as he normally would, and he'll see his wife in 3 days in Toledo. He gave it to a friend and told his friend to mail it to his wife. And of course, you know what happens. The ship goes down, and a few days later, his wife receives in the mail a 2-carat diamond ring, 25th anniversary, from her husband with a lovely note. And she wore that the rest of her life, and she never remarried. So one of those stories like that just tells you the lives these people lived.
Yeah, what a story that just stays with you. Was there anything that you weren't able to get? Were there any stories or pieces that you wanted that you weren't able to get confirmed?
This book is 388 pages long, and I cut it in half. So yes, there are quite a few. We had to go easy on the reader, of course, and cut a lot of it out, unfortunately. But we did get to 14 of the 29 families, and I also discovered 6 crewmen who had been on the ship, obviously before it went down, because as you said, all 29 went down with the ship. 6 crewmen had been on the ship and knew the captain, knew the crew, knew the ship itself, and 2 were on that year, actually. So all that we definitely kept.
So then what was it like speaking to the family members of these 29 men? I mean, for so many people in Michigan, Edmund Fitzgerald is just a legend, but for them, they lived through it. They saw the heartache. What was that like talking to them?
Well, at first, they were understandably cautious. They had never spoken to a reporter before. But we built trust over time, in part through Bruce Lynn, the executive director of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum in Whitefish Point, which you just showed some video of. So I can borrow some of his trust and credibility. That was very helpful. But ultimately, we became quite close in this process. And those poor people went through 10 or 15 interviews each before we were done. So they were cautious at first, but I think ultimately they felt very good about getting their fathers, their uncles, their cousins, their boyfriends' stories out in full, and that's what they feel good about.
And then, of course, we have to talk about Gordon Lightfoot's song. What really stuck out to me in the book was I didn't realize that the song that was released was the first time that song had ever been played. Tell me a bit about researching that aspect of the book.
It's an amazing story, one I did not expect also. Let's be honest, without the song, there is no book. There are 6,000 shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, and everyone knows one. It's because of the song, naturally. But Gordon Lightfoot was an avid sailor. He'd done the Port Huron to Mackinac race, which I've done. It was quite rigorous. He knew what like Spear was all about. The night he was writing the song, November 10th, 1975, is the night the ship was going down. And even the winds were howling in Toronto. And he thought, man, it must be hell on Superior tonight. And he's right about that, naturally. Excuse me. So he starts writing the song. He gets it 95%, maybe higher, accurate. He did a very good job in the song. He did not want to perform it for his band even. He's too sensitive about it, too self-conscious. But they're recording their next album in Toronto. And after 3.5 days, they have all 11 songs done, not this one. This was not supposed to be on the album. And when they finished early, the producer said, hey man, you've got the studio rented for 5 days, and it's only been 3.5. Why don't you try that song you've been screwing around with? And he said, no, it's not ready. But he finally got talked into it. And he says, dim the lights. He's quiet for a minute. And the drummer asks him, Barry Keane, what do you want me to do? He's never even heard the song. And Lightfoot says, I'll give you a nod when I want you to come in. So sure enough, at 1:34, like a minute and a half, he nods to Barry Keane, who comes in with that thunderous drum bit, which we now, of course, know is iconic. And at 6.5 minutes later, they finished the song. And they thought, wow, that wasn't half bad. So let's try it again. They tried it again a few more times that day. They came back the next day and tried it a few more times. And none of them were as good as the first time they played it. The song you hear on the radio is not just a first take. It's the first time the band ever played the song. And Barry Keane has been on 500 albums. I'm not kidding. He said, first takes happen once in a blue moon. But first time you ever played it, that is unheard of. Never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever. And I asked him why. And he said, this is not a song that you think your way through. It's a song you've got to feel. And the more you feel it, the more the listener's going to feel it also. And that's why that version is the one you hear.
And so, of course, that song really helped immortalize the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. But I'm curious, what do you think really makes the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald so captivating that so many people are still talking about it 50 years later? Do you think it's just that song, or do you think that there's more there? There's
more to it. Certainly the song registers, of course. Two is the mystery of it, and we don't quite solve that even in this book. We get closer to it, I think. But there are no witnesses. And as Ruth Hudson, the mother of Bruce Hudson, her only child, as she said, only 30 know, 29 men and God, and none of them are talking. So we'll never fully know that. So the mystery, I think, draws people to it as well. And finally, two stunning stats. As I said, between 1875 and 1975, 6,000 commercial shipwrecks occurred on the Great Lakes. That's a stunning number. It's one per week for a century. Since the Edmund Fitzgerald, November 10th, 1975, there have been 0. So you go from 6,000 for a century to 0 for half a century. So it's kind of like 9/11 for us, basically, for the shipping industry. It's the last one that we can talk about, essentially. So that also, I think, keeps it alive. And finally, we have these stories now coming out that are also going to keep it alive, I think, for many years.
Well, John, thank you so much for stopping by. Of course, Gales of November is out now. Thanks so much for sharing a bit of the story with us.
Madeline, thank you.
And joining me now is Joe Guthrie, a Michigan author who recently published the second book in his Grandfather Christmas Secret Scrolls trilogy. Joe, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here today, Madeline.
Absolutely. And so for this trilogy, your daughter was actually a big part of the inspiration for these books. Tell me a bit about that and just how these books came together.
Yeah, she really was. It was about 6 years ago now when it first came about. And, we were leading up to Christmas, and she's a big reader herself. So her questions were maybe a little bit deeper than a lot of other questions. And I'm a big fan of Christmas, always have been, and would have thought that as, a father, I would have the answers to all of those. Well, I didn't. Because of the types of questions she was asking. So I originally thought that someone should, write a book about more of the origins, kind of something like a guide almost for parents, so we keep our stories straight in terms of those types of answers. So, that was just kind of rattling around in my head for a little while. And then I was just kind of contemplating, Father Christmas, and, there's really no stories about Santa creating the North Pole and how the reindeer came about and how the elves came about, because those were the types of questions she was asking me. And so I was thinking about Father Christmas, and I thought, well, if he didn't create it, maybe his father did. And if his father did, then maybe he would be Grandfather Christmas. So that's how the name of the book came about, was to name it Grandfather Christmas. And then throughout the book, it teaches you or talks to you about how, Nicholas as a young boy becomes, Saint Nicholas, and then becomes Santa, and that type of stuff. But it also really focuses on, like with book one, the journey, which is the first book, which is about the journey that Nicholas's parents go on to go north to create a lot of what we know to be true of Christmas and the traditions that we actually hold on to today, with Saint Nicholas joining them later and then becoming Santa. So it's pretty neat how it came out, but that's kind of how it all got inspired and kind of put together. And then it really took, 5 years to take it from an idea, and bring it to life. So it's been a lot of fun.
Was your daughter a fan of the end results? Does she approve of the books and the answers to all her questions?
Yes, she does approve. She's 15 now, so but she does approve, and she actually kind of looks over a lot of the work before it's completed and kind of gives me her take on it. What was interesting was she approved of it from the get-go. The very first story that I did, which it's kind of morphed a little bit from that, but she had said to somebody that her favorite story was Grandfather Christmas, but yet it hadn't been finished. So they probably haven't heard of it yet. So that kind of motivated me to carry it on and get it done. And so when I went to finish the first book, The Journey, which I kind of showed you, it kind of led me to the other books that have developed. It's kind of a finished trilogy at this point. The second book that just came out this year is Grandfather Christmas, The First Christmas, which is all about Santa's first Christmas and what they do throughout that year to create the first Christmas. And then that will be followed up by the story of St. Nicholas, which will come out next year. So the first three will be out, and probably with a few more to follow in the years ahead, if people are wondering.
So then, as you were working on that second book, the book that was just released, what was it like putting together that story of the magical night of Santa's first Christmas?
It was a lot of fun because I wanted to share details of things, and again, tie in traditions, the idea of selfless giving and family, joy, and then, all the different little fun parts about how the presents came together and the idea of it. So it's really how the ideas were stimulated that go into kind of what we all hold near and dear to ourselves about Christmas, all the way from, how Santa's suit was designed, how Santa's name came about, how the idea of giving gifts to children, all of those types of things. So that was really kind of gratifying and fun, and a way to give that a little more substance, I think, than what we do get normally throughout the kind of the traditional stories we've had.
Sure. And then, of course, your third book is coming soon. Can you give us a bit of a teaser of what to expect with that third book?
Yes, I can. So, the first Christmas that's out now is focused on building up to that first Christmas, and Santa kind of taking off to deliver the first Christmas. And the third one, the story of St. Nicholas, is really kind of dedicated to him coming home from the first Christmas, kind of the celebrations that kind of take off, and then him actually taking the time to share with his parents. They were separated for 50 years before he came to them to the North Pole. So he hadn't taken the time. They were so busy getting the first Christmas, Santa's first Christmas, ready, that he hadn't really shared with them about his life. So in the story of St. Nicholas, he talks to them about what happened after they left him as a young boy. And, he spent a life of being selfless and giving and generosity, and did so many things for so many people. St. Nicholas was probably the saint of the most different things that there are. He was a saint of women, children, bakers, fishermen, really of so many. And so he was known for that, which is part of the reason why he was chosen to become Santa, to continue to give to us and remind us of all the things that are important, like those things.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely have to keep an eye out for that last book in the trilogy. Before I let you go, my last question for you is, if someone is looking for a Christmas gift for a reader in their life, what would you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, Grandfather Christmas is always a good one that you could get. But what I would say is, there's so many great Michigan authors that are publishing, and it's become much easier to publish. So I would say to support us here in Michigan and other authors to, look to see what's out there, because there's a lot more than you would think. And maybe start with Michigan authors and see if you can find something that would fall into the realm of what you think the person you're buying a gift is looking for. And I think honestly, that's kind of my best answer to that, because it's so subjective and, depends on who you're buying for. And if you did want to get, one of these two books, you can at grandfatherchristmas.com. They're both on Amazon. You can get them direct from the author. You can get them from Amazon. Just go to the order link and it'll take you where you need to go. If you're up here locally where I'm at near Petoskey, it's in some stores and things like that. But eventually I hope to make it into bookstores throughout the state. It's just takes some time to grow and to get the word out. So anybody that does get it, I hope they do enjoy it. It's been a labor of love and so much fun to do.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to us about your new book. Again, that's Grandfather Christmas, the second book in that Secret Scrolls trilogy. Joe, thank you again.
You got it. Thanks a lot, man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And I'm so excited to welcome Dana Sogstead, the author of a new children's Christmas book, The 12 Days of You for Christmas. It's a Michigan take on the classic Christmas song. Dana, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And so, of course, this book pays homage to Michigan, especially the Upper Peninsula. But it actually got started when you moved to Alaska. Can you tell me a bit about that connection and that part of your journey?
Yes. So I lived in Alaska for about 8 years. And in the summer of, I want to say it was summer of 2018, I took a class called Alaskan Children's Literature. And what it is a class for educators. My background's in environmental ed. And you read children's books to learn more about Alaska. And so there's Christmas books based on Alaskan Christmas books. There's folklore, a lot of history, and they're all children's books. And I love the class. It was a lot of fun. But then during COVID, I moved back to Michigan. I'm from Michigan. And I was looking around. I was up in the UP, and I was looking to learn more about the UP through children's books, and there wasn't any. So it was my mission. I'm like, I want to try to change that. So that's how the 12 Days of You for Christmas came to be.
Awesome. Well, so then what inspired you to write this particular book, for it to be a Christmas book and for it to be this take on the 12 Days of Christmas?
There's an Alaskan book called The 12 Days of Summer. So the 12 Days of Alaskan Summer, and it's a really fun take on using the 12 Days of Christmas song, but having it as an Alaska-themed summer. And that was one of my favorites in that class. And so using that inspiration, being up in the UP, how that could have a spin to it. And then each day has its own little history fact or a cultural fact of why it was chosen.
So the book features a lot of fun things, including 5 beef pasties. Tell me about how you picked those 12 items.
I was out on a boat launch, and so that my job, I wrote this during the summer of 2021, and I was out with the Wild Rivers Invasive Species Coalition, and I'd be at different boat launches to clean, drain, and dry your boat. And that was throughout Dickinson County and Menominee County and a little bit of Wisconsin, some northern counties there. But I would be out there talking to people, and sometimes they would show up. I'm not kidding. Some people would just show up with a pasty when they're about to go out fishing or boating. And some others, they were talking about can't wait to go ice fishing, or just talking a lot of outdoor activities. So that's kind of what a lot of the different items of talking to different people and living up here, and what are the big UP themed culture up here.
And so are you thinking of writing any more UP children's books?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about doing Uper ABC. So we'll see how that pans out. And again, it would be with Mission Point Press. So this book is all Michigan based. In the next, if I do another one, the goal is to also have it all Michigan based. So the illustrator, her name is, with 12 Days of You for Christmas, her name is Emmeline Osty, and she is from Marquette, born and raised from Marquette, Michigan.
Awesome. Well, Dana, before I let you go, of course, this episode we're talking about the Christmas gift book guide. What recommendation would you have for a reader for a Christmas gift this year?
Ooh, so if you haven't already, make sure you visit your local bookstore, see if they have any local authors. There's so many Michigan authors out there. Look to see what's available at your local bookstore. I know some libraries, you can donate a tree or a book in their name. So they'll have trees at libraries. You take a tag and they'll have books. I don't know which libraries right now off the top of my head, but so just keep on giving to your readers with books, or even a membership to their bookstore, a gift certificate to their local bookstore.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Dana, thank you so much again for stopping by and for talking to us about your new book, The 12 Days of You for Christmas.
Yes, thanks for having me.
And earlier this year, I reached out to several local bookstores in the area for their recommendations for a good Christmas gift for the reader in your life. 14 stores responded, including Reader's World in Holland. They're a local store owned and operated since 1967. Joining me now is Steve with Reader's World. Steve, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool.
Awesome. Thank you. And so first, let's talk about some of your recommendations. For mystery readers, you suggested the Shady Hollow mystery series, which you described as cute, cozy critters committing crimes. Can you tell me a bit about why that would make a good gift, especially for mystery readers?
I think it's like one of those series that kind of anyone can read. It's a little bit silly, they're animals. It's really cute and cozy. I really liked getting to write that line. It's a good one you could use when recommending it. But it's kind of like if Fantastic Mr. Fox was also just like solving murders. And there's like a whole series of them. I think it's a composite author that does it too. So they're really fun, and the covers are really cute on those too.
And so your literary fiction recommendation, you said in your notes that it was your favorite read of the year. That was Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. Can you tell me about that, and why would you recommend that book?
That book blew me away. I feel like I read quite a bit of books, so like when one just like gets you, just to stop in your tracks, it really special. And it was a debut too, which I think is amazing. She's from Ireland. It's a really good like coming of age story. It's set in the 90s and it's about community and family, but her prose is incredible, and it's a lot of just like teenage angst and yearning. And it was a book that like, it's been a while since I was a teen, but when you're reading it, you're like, wow, yeah, this really explains it, but in a way that I think anyone could learn a lot from it and get a lot from. And it's just really good, and it's a really beautiful book. I think it could hit anyone at any age, and I'm so excited about it. I can't stop talking about it, so I kind of figured it's a good one to recommend, so maybe I can talk to people about it.
Those books that you just can't stop talking about are always the best. Sounds like a great recommendation. So then what suggestions would you have if someone wants to get like a non-book gift for a reader in their life? Like maybe they're not quite confident picking out like a book for someone. What suggestions do you have for that?
Oh, sure. I like it because it's kind of book adjacent. If anyone's done the Myrtle puzzles, where it's kind of like murder mysteries and you got to solve puzzles, and then there's like a murder most puzzling where you kind of solve clues and that, but they came out with like puzzle series of them, like an actual jigsaw puzzle. You have to build it, and you go into it sight unseen. You don't know what it is, and as you piece the pieces together, you also piece clues together, and it makes for like a really fun activity to be able to, good group activity, holidays, but it's also a murder mystery. So.
Oh, that sounds like a blast. So for people who aren't familiar with Reader's World, can you tell me a little bit about that shop? I know it's down on 8th Street. Been there a couple times, and it's such a cute store. Can you tell me about what you offer?
Yeah, Reader's World's amazing. It's a family store that has been, multiple generations now, since 1967. And it's really cool because it's such a corner of Holland, like a known part where it's part of like the local culture a lot, and we sell a lot of like local history stuff. And I'll never forget when I first started working there, I had multiple people that were like, "Oh, nice to meet you," and they would pull a book off the shelf and be like, "This is me," or "This is like my house," and like it was really cool because I wasn't too much a part of Holland at that point in my life yet. And it's kind of what made me feel like, oh, no, I feel like part of this community now. And like, I'm learning so much about it. I think I like the way bookstores can serve as like a cultural touchstone for communities. So.
And so then when people are buying books, whether it's for a Christmas gift or a book for themselves, I mean, there's lots of options. There's chains, there's big online booksellers, but there are also so many locally owned independent bookstores. Why should people shop at stores like Reader's World or other stores? What really sets those stores apart from some of those big booksellers?
Oh, sure. I know there's kind of a popular catchphrase about like it's a person, not an algorithm, recommending you books. But I think so much of that is really cool that it's when you go to an independent bookstore, you get a sense of a personality of the owner but also the community. And I think it's really fun to curate books. I've also worked in libraries, and the idea of like striving to build a collection that represents like the plurality of your community is like, just a really beautiful thing and can help you get in touch with more of your community. And everyone wants to see themselves represented. And, a local bookstore, you can get a lot of local authors and stuff. And I think the one thing about independent stores is it is like a very unique, more personal, more independent feel that also lets you celebrate, and it becomes a house for art in general. And I think especially like in the modern era, it's really beautiful to see people collaborate around art, and the idea of just celebrating like our local area and having your voice heard. And I think what's really nice with Reader's World too is being right downtown, kind of like a really storied history community. There's a lot of collaboration. I'm part of a book club, Lit we call ourselves, and we do local poetry readings, and the bookstore is involved in that, and so it's like the local coffee shop, Lamangelo's, and it's just really cool to see how everything kind of comes together around that.
Awesome. Well, Steve, thank you so much again for stopping by. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching this latest episode of Let's Get Literary. We've got a replay of this episode along with that gift guide over on our website, woodtv.com. For now, I'm your host, Madeline Bursma. Merry Christmas and keep reading, West Michigan.